Thank you. At the end of the training, take some notes.
Okay, we're live.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to our work session here tonight. We just came out of executive session. We were talking about personnel issues, so I will late, but I'd like to start the meeting with roll call.
Sure. Tim Frazier?
Here.
Dave Conlon?
Here.
Amy Rivera?
Here.
Pat Braban and Barbara Dayton are absent.
We all stand for pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the agenda tonight, we had a discussion about strategic planning, and we would like to postpone that at this time until a further date. So I asked Ms. Winters to postpone that tonight. I really want to thank Julie for setting this up, and also our consultant, who probably is a little upset also, but certainly we're looking forward to speaking with them in the near future. Okay. Next item on the agenda is tonight we're going to have a discussion about transportation. So there's a lot of issues related to that, I know. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Winters to share some of the things that we need to consider tonight.
Thanks, Tim. I did a little bit of historical data for the Board of Education. Okay, I didn't have a chance to put it in a PowerPoint presentation, but thanks to Julie's help, I was able to get some of this prior data. So in 2017-18, we had 698 students. We had 5 full-time drivers and 5 hourly drivers. Our starting salary for full-time driver with benefits is $35,911. That's the starting salary. Our hourly rate is $29 an hour. If you look at any one of the New York State, Suffolk County, Nassau County, we are more than above the average for the hourly rate. Our starting salary is right there as well. It's between $32,000 and really up to $45,000. So there's a wide range there. And we're specifically looking at school bus drivers and not, charter buses. Very, very different. So don't compare the two if you go to look online. In 2018-19, we had 686 students. And again, we had added 1 more full-time driver to make it 6, and then 4 hourly. So we're always around that 10 bus driver mark. Now, with hourly drivers, remember they start early and they have a big gap in the middle of the day, and then they come back, but they get no benefits, okay? More drivers in 2019-20 were invited, thanks to the board's help, for full-time with benefits. We thought that was a way of not having this revolving door with hourly employees. So we had 9.5, 9 full-time drivers and a 0.5 driver in 2019-20, and that was 668 children. Now this is total enrollment, and I want to remind the board, our drivers, our buses have to be loaded to the maximum number of students, whether we have car line or not. Because God forbid we have to evacuate this building and go places, you need to have enough drivers and enough buses to do that. So our buses are loaded to about 90 to accommodate all of our students, okay? 2020-21, we had 616 students. If you remember, that was our pandemic year. We had 11.5 drivers. We did lose a driver that came back to us. She does this, she goes to forest, she comes back, she goes to forest, she goes back. And now we're at 10.5 for this year. And they are all full-time except for the half, okay? And this year we have 696 students. We've transport about 346 to the high school this year. And then you have to remember our other schools. Ross Upper and Lower. Some years they were going to the same site. They're now in 2 different sites again, depending on their enrollment. Transport to Southampton, that started about the time I got here, 5 years ago. That we never had a Southampton run before that. West Hampton Beach, we've always had that run. Some years we give it over to BOCES to do, which is very expensive, and some years we're able to do it in-house. We're currently doing it in-house right now, but we will be going to BOCES for the summer because we can't get drivers. And then you have Hayground. Okay? And that's where we were asking for that little bigger minibus, not quite a big bus, because you could combine one of the Rosses with Hayground and keep it under 30, and you don't have to use a really big bus. So we continue to try to find out what makes our bus drivers want to stay, and the full-time and the benefits definitely helped. Now, in order for a driver to be full-time, they need to do something in the middle of the day. Most of our drivers do lunch and recess duty. Some of our drivers do maintenance on our buses that they can do in the bus yard without a garage. That's Robbie and sometimes Carlos. Other drivers, like Betty Ann, works in the business office doing your boxes and when packages come in. So we try to accommodate all of our drivers to what they like to do. If you ask them, they would love not to do lunch and recess duty, but then they wouldn't be full-time and then they wouldn't get their benefits. You're shaking your heads, okay? But in other districts, that's not offered to drivers. They work 2 hours in the morning and then they got to come back at 1 or 2 o'clock depending on their runs. So their day is really broken up and they have no benefits. Our hourly rate is good. I'm not going to say that it can't go up. Of course, everybody would be looking to get more money, but it's good. There are some drivers on Long Island making $21 an hour, and they're not getting benefits. So I think we've kept up with, the competition around us. Recently, another district nearby, I won't name names, went out to get what's called a request for proposals, just to see if that would be a little bit better than running their own fleet. 0 companies bid. 0. Not one company bid on their job for their school district. So they're more or less stuck running their own buses, which they were trying to get away from. And then you have Montauk, who had a bus company. They went out of business, and now they're running their own buses, and they're also struggling with broken down buses and different sorts of things there. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Are we doing a good job? I think we are doing a phenomenal job with what we have. We have buses breaking down constantly. We have drivers that need days off. You cannot drive if you need to be near a bathroom. You just can't. We can, but they can't. They don't feel well in the morning. They really need to stay home because they don't know what it's going to be like for them on the road. We had a bus breakdown yesterday. Bus 10 broke down yesterday. So.
Let me ask you this, if you're sharing those. So East Hampton pretty recently, is going to be opening up their new bus facility there on Springs Fireplace Road. Is there any way that we can, use that as a maintenance of our buses that are broken down? We could maybe send it to them, have them work on them there. Is there something we can work out with East Hampton School District that would make it easier to maintain our buses and to fuel them and so forth instead of what we're doing now?
We'll definitely see what their rates are and compare them to what we're paying for now.
Yeah. Where do we go now to repair buses?
Baldwin is not really taking our buses in that they can't get parts. Robbie is on eBay and knows how to run some of these, outfits to get the parts. But if you ask Baldwin, they're maxed. They've got buses in their yard that they can't fix because they can't get the parts.
And we fuel where? Where do we fuel?
Locally. Because, somebody mentioned to me that they should go up island, but again, they sometimes don't have enough time in between routes to
But
go
it's
up
like
island.
if we could fuel up at East Hampton. and we had
That's
a
Springs
reasonable rate,
Fireplace Road.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
be easy to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's worth looking into as far as maybe solving some of the issues as far as being prepared every day for these buses to run the routes that they're running.
I understand East Hampton is looking for a bus mechanic.
Probably.
So the consistent issue that we're having, can you explain it? So that, what's the issue?
The issue is
Is the
when a
issue-
driver calls out in the morning, okay, they double up the routes. So what I did for one of our parents was there was another bus that was crossing that route. She doesn't double up because her bus is full. So she actually is there at the same time every day, no matter what. Where the other bus was the bus that ended up doubled up because his bus wasn't full. So he could actually do 2 runs with one bus. So that's what I did for that one parent to make sure that it was consistent, but that bus is full.
So we went from 10.5 to 9.5.
No,
With it, when someone calls.
right. When somebody
And we
calls
have
out.
to- And then how do you decide which route to double up?
It's the bus that has less children on it, so that it has room for the double routes. The double route is, it's done at the same time. It's not like that driver comes back, drops off the kids, and then goes back out again. He has room on his bus for the 2 routes. So someone's gonna get picked up later.
How, in the course of a month, how many times are we double routing because someone's out?
I'm in the process of trying to collect that information from Connect Ed. You put in a ticket system, you can't talk to a live person anymore. It's very frustrating. My ticket's been in since last week.
Wouldn't Marion just like to have that number?
No, she doesn't. No.
Is there a commentary section?
Yeah, we're still discussing.
Okay.
So if we had just hypothetically, if we had an extra bus driver, so hypothetically we had 11.5. And that person was on standby, could that person fill in for, would we be able to use 11.5 if we had 11.5?
Sure we would.
And then
Right.
we wouldn't then have to worry about this double up issue, which might be happening multiple times a month.
Yeah.
So how hard would
Absolutely.
it be for us to find that extra bus driver?
We haven't found one all year. Our ad is posted on our website. We post it in the Star at least 2 or 3 times a year. Marion puts it out to her listserv. She has a listserv. Our governor, because of the shortage of bus drivers, came up with this creative solution that she provided all districts with a list of all CDL licensed people. When I went down the list, they were mostly landscapers. I said, ooh, they might want to do this for the winter months. The email is attached. I emailed all of them. None of them emailed me back because we would pay for them to get a passenger CDL license. So even if you have a regular CDL license, you need a passenger one to drive a school bus. But the governor gave us this tremendous list. It was incredible.
So,
Not one.
not one.
Not
So,
one.
out of curiosity, is it unfair to say if one of the bus drivers calls out and we have our local runs here for Springs kids who go to Springs School or East Hampton High School, is it unfair to put them as precedents over Ross, Southampton, West Hampton Beach, and Hayground, and basically taking that bus driver and saying, you gotta help us with our Springs routes first, and then we'll get to those further districts after our local students are delivered.
One of the problems with that is the timing on it. So
Would the call out come early?
they're usually out before our elementary runs.
So now, is there one bus that does all those routes for us? West Hampton, Hayground? Or it's 4 different runs?
No, the bus that goes out the earliest is the West Hampton Beach Run. That's our part-time driver. And then he comes back and he does Southampton.
So now, does Montauk have a bus that goes to West Hampton Beach or East Hampton?
No, in fact, we're being looked at to transport a child from Amagansett to West Hampton Beach. So then we would get money for that.
Right. But it's not like we can try to share one of the.
As
Another
it is, East Hampton helps us a great deal. We bus to East Hampton High School for our kids that go to Sequoia at BOCES.
Oh,
And that's
they-
Holbrook, and they bus them there, but we have to get them to the high school.
I would think precedent would always be least number of kids impacted. So that's why I'm going back to Ross, Southampton, West Hampton Beach, and Hayrand, because I feel like if one of our local routes is being affected, it's affecting a lot more kids than maybe the smaller number of kids that need to get to these further away districts. So we should always put precedence on making sure our routes locally are as close to on time as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the problem is Marion, who often takes those routes, doesn't drive a big bus. So when Daniela, who has those routes, Daniela can drive a big bus. Marion can't drive a big bus.
Now, Ross doesn't have their own, I thought they have this van that says Ross School
No, because-
Transportation.
Yeah, but we are obligated to provide those kids transportation from Springs.
A lot of that.
And again, I would say there would be an equity issue by sending them, because they're go to Ross or Hayground or wherever, that they're gonna be transported fast. I think.
I didn't say, but I rephrased my words. I said, impacting the least amount of kids, whereas a local route that is being disturbed is affecting a lot more kids
Right,
than
but
maybe
I think
a
there could-
small amount of kids that are going to a faraway, the Hayground. How many kids do we have?
I know, I get it, but I think they can make an argument that even with that terminology, they're being discriminated against because they're further still back.
Well, I was just thinking just pure math, not,
Right.
you know what I mean? I'm not thinking that way.
If there were very few children, you could get away with a very small vehicle and not necessarily a CDL license. But there's too many children. Marion's actually looking for a smaller, big bus, like a 33 passenger bus, to bus these children rather than a big bus because of the gas and the expense of riding a bus that really holds 90 for 30 kids. That's one of the things Mike and her are looking into with our the bonds for the buses.
So, Ms. Tucci, we'd be glad to have some input from you at this point. Thank you.
First,
And don't
Because-
forget the district has agreed to pay for training
Right.
for any
Bus
driver. That was also an incentive. The only thing we haven't done is a find
I
a
think
fee.
we've given them about every incentive you can imagine to come drive a bus for us, so.
First and foremost, I want to thank you, Amy, and you, David, for your hard work for all these years, putting up with all the us parents, upset parents, happy parents, lots of happy parents. David, thank you so much, because you were the only one that answered my email, that have answered my emails about transportation. That means you're listening to me, and I appreciate that. And you too, Amy, you always so down to earth. I can always approach the two of you. You're very even keeled. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really, really appreciate all your help. And my frustration is not with you personally. My frustration is with the way the transportation department is being run. I get it, I understand, because I understand math. You can't find bus drivers. That's like the story of our lives, you know? You can't find help anywhere. I get that part. But we have to come up with a system. Either it's better ways of communication, hire a dispatcher, somebody that sits in the computer and says, okay, my route is out today, I'm gonna move this person and that person. Something has to happen. And I'm gonna say in public, the parent that David is mentioning, it's me. Yes, they changed the bus route for my children after 3 years of me sending emails and being nasty about it. So the parent has to be nasty and be vocal for things to get fixed. That's not fair to the other parents that are waiting 40 minutes at the same bus route that my children were waiting for. And not to say the liability. Did you know what an 8-year-old, like, do they have any brain that if they're in the middle of Trinidad Harbor and my intersection, waiting and waiting, all they need to do is go this and a car can come and boom, they're done. It is irresponsible. And it's unacceptable. What will happen if you can't find a teacher? What happens when one morning you get 15 teachers out and 7 substitutes and you only have 7 substitutes? You don't call the parents and say, oh, they're not gonna learn math today, right? You figured it out and you have a body or you have something and the show moves on. It has to be the same for transportation. I'm sorry. I understand 10 minutes. I even take 15 minutes of a delay, but 42 minutes, 37 minutes, not a text. I mean, like, let's think about that. Not a text. Not a Route 7 is late. I want somebody to walk me through the process. So I'm a bus driver and I woke up in the morning and I can't go to work. Who do I call in the morning? Marion or you then? Who?
Marion.
Marion. And what does Marion do after that call?
She tries to find another driver.
And then what goes after that call? Does she go online and sends an email to the parents of that child
No,
and says the bus
she
is
does
right?
not, because in order for Marion to get a large bus driver, okay, someone to drive that big bus, she has to get behind the wheel of a little bus. Does she text me? She does text me, but I am on the road and I can't get any service till I get into this building. I have the times that the bus came. I have those because I have the time the children walk into the building.
It's
They're-
acceptable.
They're
It
never
has to
40
be-
minutes late.
It has to be a system. The substitute coordinator cannot come back in here and say, oh, I didn't have service, I couldn't find a substitute. That doesn't happen, right?
Oh, it does.
But
It
it's
does
not in my
happen.
12 too.
Do you know I got a text this morning that our principal was going to be out sick? I never got it. I showed it to Mr. Odom.
One day.
I was in this building at 6 o'clock this morning and I never got the text from the building principal.
But listen, we can't just be leaving the same excuse. It's been 4 years. 4 years. I actually have a lot in Excel of how many times I get a text. And I can tell you it's not many times. I have to tell you, kids were walking late on the day of the math test. I mean, it's like you taking your bar or whatever test that is important in your life and you're late. You know how you're gonna get like this. You're not gonna be able to think. It's not fair. If you can find bus drivers, which proves that it's impossible. I don't know why, because it's Hampton hired one in February, but whatever. Then you need to see them find a dispatcher or a full-time administrative assistant or somebody that is sitting in there working the schedule and configuring it out on short notice. It can't be like this. I am telling you that I appreciate that you changed the route. That was good. But it really didn't make me happy because what it proves is that I have to come to how many board meetings, write these emails that look like a rosary, this length, I can be like absolutely, pardon my language, a jerk about it for the board and for you guys to hear me. That's not what we do here at Springs. You guys cut the budget. In the budget, you guys cut the bus driver, one bus driver and a half. It was part of the budget this year, right?
One driver.
One driver. What would you do that? What if one of your drivers wins the lottery and walks out? Then you're down to 8.
No,
and then
I
what
can
are you
re-
doing? What are you going to do?
I
Tell
can
me what you're
replace
gonna
that driver, but I can't find anybody.
do. That's what I'm saying.
I can't even go for my road test because I can't keep my hands above my head. I would drive a bus in a heartbeat, but you need to be able to get into that engine, inspect it, change the oil, lift up the hatches. I can't keep my hands above my head. It's
Nobody
not-
wants to do that.
It's not as easy as finding a substitute teacher.
Excuse me, Deb. Ms.
It's
Tucci,
just
I really
not-
appreciate you coming tonight and sharing your frustration with us. It is something that we are listening to and we're hearing about, and we're going to put our heads together and try to see if we can't solve it. But there are some pretty difficult things to overcome. But again, at least we know what the issues are.
No, I
And I
get
think,
it.
and I think that's important. So I appreciate you taking the time tonight
No,
to again
no, I
continue to
appreciate it
share.
too.
Okay?
I-
That's a big issue.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, it is.
Yeah.
Ethanol,
we're
you need
gonna-
a dispatcher. And one more thing before I go. Yeah, promise I'll shut up. Can we make a note to all the parents in Springs that when we call to the school, there's not a human answering the phone? That it's like press 1 to go here, press 2. I mean, I have called several times and the phone rings and rings, and I hate to say it, with the situation of the world now, if nobody answers, you think the worst. So if we can find any clerical help, and we have to resort to press 1 and press 2, would you send us a letter saying, don't freak out, we're safe, but press 1 and press 2? Thank you.
How often is it? How often is
Oh, every time I call, I call again the other day, ran.
it? Yeah, I mean, I call a lot too, and I'd say about, I wouldn't say half the time, but a fair amount of time I do get that. It's a little concern. I mean, that might be something we want to look at, find out why someone can't pick up their phone.
And again, thank you so much, Dave and Amy. Really,
Thank you.
thank you.
We're going to recognize Dave and Amy at the next board meeting next week. We're going to have a cake for them. If you'd like to join us.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm calling for me.
I don't like anything healthy, it can't have fruit in it.
That's funny.
Don't worry,
I
it
understand
doesn't.
Julie ordered the cake.
Don't
so
worry, it
please.
doesn't.
She knows.
So,
I'm on it.
If you could just
Yeah,
state
you
your,
said
if you could
something-
state your name,
Oh.
that'd be great.
Chrissy Alonda, you mentioned something that I think isn't always well understood, in that when creating our bus routes, you have to make sure that somehow or another there is a space for every student in the school, whether or not that student is actually riding the bus. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And I think that that's one place where we might look to rearrange so that, yes, if something happens, we know that there's a way for every kid to have a seat. But meanwhile, for the majority of the year, there's a different arrangement for buses. Like maybe we don't need as many buses if half the, kids are on car line. There's an emergency contingency plan. Oh, we will use all the buses and have all the drivers in an emergency. But maybe our day-to-day could be reconfigured. If there's some buses that we know are the light buses that most of the kids are actually on car line, I'm just not sure what the math is for that. And it would be interesting to see what the other options are to configure that differently. It's the only thing I could possibly think of that, might help, is just playing with those numbers a little bit, knowing that there are buses that are light because they are really on car line. Maybe that could be tweaked.
That's exactly what Marion did with that Route 7 and 8, is she combined them because there's not that many children on it. We take attendance, especially with COVID, we have the monitors, so we had really pretty good record keeping on who was riding the bus there.
Okay. Are there any comments from the phone audience at this time? Hello? Are there any people calling in?
Matt?
LTV.
You went to sleep on it. Okay. They'll get back to us. So the next thing on the agenda, we're going to have Ms. Cleary talk to us about the professional development, but she's been ill today, so I hope she's feeling better, and we will reschedule that at the next work session, okay? The next subject is item D, which is about the osprey nest. So you want to fill us in on that, Deb?
Yeah, so I gave you an attachment there about osprey nest on the east end, and there's quite a few. There's one actually right by the general store, like down the end there. The gentleman that you and I have been corresponding with did not get back to me, Dave. I don't know if he got back to you.
I actually talked to the guy in this article,
Oh, you did?
so he'd be happy to come out this summer. Sounds like something we wouldn't do until probably the fall or very, very early spring. If you're gonna put one up, as they come up from the south, you want to have it up.
Okay, and PSEG is very involved.
Yeah. We could explore all that with that gentleman in this article. Yeah, he knows a lot. East End?
Yeah, and he said if you want to come out.
Yeah, he said he'd come out. He'd be happy to come out. And he would help walk the property. he knew about, because he's in Southold, so he knew all about Pussy's Pond. And he was even, I guess he's got some inroads with the town. He said even if he ended up wanting to put it over there, he said he could probably talk to somebody. So I mean, ideally, it would be really cool to have it on campus.
Mhm.
But maybe when he comes out, he can actually walk the campus and see it, and give us his insights.
Okay. I'll get in touch with him.
Any further discussion on that topic? So the next item is adjournment. So, do I have a
Excuse me,
motion?
Springs Board, can you hear me?
Yes,
This is LTV.
Yes.
I'm calling in on we were having a problem with the talkback mic, so I'm actually calling in through the free conference call, and we don't have any callers for comment. So,
okay, thank you so
the
much.
phone lines are open, and I can speak to you through here.
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to adjourn the meeting right now. So, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.